Hello, welcome to AI in Action. My name is Maury, and I'm here with my husband Jim, but I'm actually virtually here with my husband Jim because I am not in Lano tonight. I'm actually going to be working remote for a couple of days. Our daughter is going back to work tomorrow, 12 weeks after she had our grandbaby. So, we're separate for tonight, and that's okay.
Well,
Because
you
guess what we're going to
also
do? We're going to
you
use
al-
technology and we're going to talk about AI.
you also have a AI meeting, don't you?
Yes, I have the Austin AI Alliance. We have our monthly meeting. Anyone out there listening, if you're in the Austin area, join us at Austin Community College, Rio Grande campus. We meet once a month on the third Wednesdays. It's a really great alliance. It has a lot to do with just what all's going on concerning artificial intelligence, not just in Austin, but the 10 surrounding counties, the 10 CapCog area, as we call it. So, but anyway, because we will be presenting at Texas A&M May School of Business on the 31st about the future of workforce, we have been doing a lot of homework on the topic because we like to present the latest, greatest. And so today we're going to be talking about the growing disconnect that is between how our educational institutions are preparing students and how the workforce is evolving, especially under the influence of AI. Once upon a time, corporations expected, they were expected to train employees. You got promoted from within. I mean, you always heard the stories, and I remember the movies in the 80s, right? About, starting out in the mailroom and all of a sudden you're the CEO of the company 10, 15
Yeah,
years
no, it's
later.
the secret of my success. You love that movie, even
I
though it's
love that
such a
movie.
cheesy movie.
But they did it because they wanted to build institutional knowledge, right?
And yeah,
But
uh,
but they said that's fading really fast. That
it's
there's
been
many,
fading for a while.
and we're going to talk about that because there's all these different roles, especially the entry level ones. They're either being eliminated or automated, and so it's leaving all these graduates that are getting out and trying to get into the workforce. They're basically sidelined, right? Even before they begin, they're getting sat on the bench, and then meanwhile, you've got this educational policy that's like shifting, like specifically in Texas, we have a $1 billion voucher.
That's pretty
Um,
recent too, isn't it?
it's very recent. It was signed, right before the school year. It was
Yeah, I
signed
remember
where you
that.
can now use the voucher program. And what it's allowing you to do, it's allowing you to do like these educational savings accounts, that like kind of like a 529 savings account.
Well, and the
And
state
it's let it
contributes to it.
the state can,
That's the whole
yes,
thing. That's the thing that makes it different because putting your own money in you could do for a long time, but now
right.
all of a sudden they're saying you can use public money, tax dollars, instead of going to the local public school district. They can go to your homeschool or your charter school or
Private
whatever. So it,
school,
it
whatever, right?
redirects those public funds toward these non. I'm not going to
Anyway,
get off on these entities that have no particular oversight whatsoever that are
right.
allowed to know this. That's why they're popping up everywhere. You
Yes,
got little
yeah,
pop
because
up
they want
schools.
to make the money. They want to make the money. They want you to pay
Yeah,
them.
it's
And
like it's
there's
like
been
after a good hail.
several that have closed down.
Yeah, it's like a good hailstorm here in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Right after you have a big hailstorm, all these little pop up tents come up all over the place for hail damage
Mm-hmm.
repair. Well, now we've
Yeah,
got
and
pop up
roofers.
schools.
Yeah,
Yeah, and roofers.
exactly.
Now we got pop up schools that are coming up. And the thing is they don't have any obligation to tell you they're going to close one day before school starts.
Right.
As
It's
far as I
happened
know, they
several
have no
times.
rules. Well, I don't know how many times this happened, but I have read about even one time. They had a big one in California that did that. Anyway, I could get off on that topic for the next hour, so I probably shouldn't.
So let's talk about what we're going to talk about in this episode, and
Yes.
no ranting aside. So in this episode, we're going to explore how corporate America's abandonment of on-the-job learning, okay?
Yeah, and
Education's narrow, how it's narrowing toward standardized testing and AI-driven job disruption. It's like colliding,
there's a big
okay?
collision course. The thing is,
There's, go ahead.
okay. The thing is the abandonment of on the job training that you and I tend to, because we're Gen Xers. It's not really the fact that we can hide the fact that we're seasoned a little bit. And when you look at our seasoning, we tend to look at things with a longer timeline. And the on-job training thing, I remember even in the late 80s, early 90s, I got out of A&M in 92 with my engineering degree, and it
And you were
wasn't a
old when you got out. I mean, you'd been in
and
the
I
workforce
I
for a
got
while.
hired. I literally got hired right out of college. I got job offers because I already had experience.
Right.
But I had new grads that were graduating the same time I was. There was no possible way other than internships that they could have any real experience. But there was
Hmm.
already an expectation, especially if you were in computer science. Now, engineering was a little different, but computer science was, we want you to be a programmer for the past 10 years, even though you're 23 or 24 years getting out of college, but you need 10 years of coding experience. And nowadays it's even worse. So
Right.
that whole
And we'll
on the
talk about
job
that in a
training
second.
thing is kind of gotten ridiculous. But let's look at
Right.
some headlines. You asked me to get some headlines.
Yes,
So
I
I
did.
got some headlines specifically about this whole concept of, we're really focusing on what's coming next, but we really don't feel like you can understand that unless you know where we came from and where we are right now.
Right. I
And
mean,
right
if
now,
you don't
companies
know
are laying off.
history, if you don't know history, you're going to repeat history.
You're doomed to repeat it, I think is the old saying.
Yes.
So companies, I'm seeing headlines everywhere. Here's one in Business Insider. Companies are blaming AI for layoffs, but the reality is, we just talked about that. They've been laying off forever and using whatever excuse was convenient at the time, because they want to get rid of the two ends. They want to get rid of the people that have been there a long time with that corporate knowledge you mentioned earlier, because you have to pay them more, and they want to
Hmm.
get and they don't want to hire the new people. They don't want to train the new people coming in because that costs money, and they want somebody else to do the training. So all they have is this middle that's getting squeezed.
So when you look at a piece of meat, where's the fat? The
It depends
fat
on how
is
you
always
define.
on the edges. The fat is always on the
Mm,
edges. It's always around, right? The
it's
the
true.
the center cut is the best piece, right? So that's what they're doing. And when they talk about trimming the fat, they're trying to trim from the top and they're trimming from the bottom. So
This,
and it's all about the money.
of course,
They only want to pay what is making them money, and those are the workers that are in the middle that have enough knowledge to be able to make them money, and enough knowledge of the company to keep the company open. So that's one. Now in the Guardian, it talks about how Gen Z faces job procopolis,
no, apocalypse.
procopolis,
Apocalypse.
apocalypse, apocalypse, like apocalyptic type
Yes,
thing,
as
right?
global firms prioritize AI over new hires.
Right. And so that the bottom fat is just easier to trim now.
Yeah, but the new hires aren't even bottom. They're not anything. You haven't hired them yet. That's the
Right.
thing, is they're not even hiring them. The survey, the headline says a survey of business leaders found 41% plan to reduce headcount via AI. Now, this is where we're going to tie this back into education, because if anybody needs to be educated, it's these people that are making these decisions.
Hmm.
Because I use AI every single day. I use it personally and I use it in my job as a tech director at a school district. And I'm integrating AI tools. I'm doing all these things. And let me tell you, I don't care who you are. You're not going to just throw an AI in there and it's going to take the place of a person immediately. There are
No.
so many nuances that you've got to think about. So your best case is there's some low hanging fruit, but mostly the low hanging fruit is efficiency AI. And
Hmm.
efficiency AI you could argue that means I have to hire less people, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I can just lay off people and throw an AI in their place. So
But what
I think
has
that is I think they need to be educated, these executives do, about what the capabilities of these AI tools really are.
but what's happening is even the headline from Walmart the other day. Walmart said that they are doing a hiring freeze
Yeah.
until they figure it out.
Which goes back to our
They're
first one, our first headline. The real reason is fear of making the wrong move, a workplace guru says.
That's right.
That's what you just
They
said in a different
that's
way, but you said exactly the same thing.
They want to figure it out. So now let's look at what there's a thing called HR dive. Companies aren't centering training on their goals,
In their goals.
but in their goals, but they need to. So the goal is no longer to train the best employee. Okay. Now let's look at this from a different standpoint. A lot of we have been business owners before. Okay. I have owned a restaurant specifically, 7 years in the restaurant business. And one of the things that was happening to us quite often is we would get somebody in and I would train them on how to make a great burger, how to do the grill, how to do, I would train them. And then sometimes they went and worked for a competing restaurant or they even started their own restaurant.
We had that happen with
Okay.
the.
So if you look at businesses that used to do on the job training, the employees of today are not as loyal as
And
the
they shouldn't be.
employees of yesterday. And
And they
let's talk
shouldn't be.
about why. Let's get to the next,
Hold on.
the Bureau of Labor Statistics.
So we're gonna skip down a few.
We're going to skip down just a little bitty
I
bit.
piled on a lot of different ones, but
Employee benefits in the United States for March of 2025. 72% of private sector workers have access to retirement benefits. Access to childcare benefits is very low. This shows how benefits still exist but are unevenly distributed. So the latest data says that 72% have
that means
access to
that means
retirement benefits.
28% don't.
28% doesn't have
It's
any.
almost a
And guess
third.
what? Of that 72%, I promise you it is not a guaranteed retirement.
Oh no, it's a 401k,
Acts, it's a 401k,
which
which we
is.
both know.
Yeah, they sell that thing like it's a guaranteed retirement, but all it is a bunch. They're selling you this idea that
It's
these equities are always going to keep going up. These stocks are going to keep going up, and we
right.
saw that when we were living in Florida, and they had the big crash back in 2002, three. There was a crash, whatever. I don't remember when it
Yep.
was, but there was a crash, and there was people that we knew that were just about to retire that
Or
couldn't
had
retire
retired.
or had
We
and had
had
to go
one that
back to work
and had to go
because
back to work.
that was a friend of yours, her husband, I
Mm-hmm.
think.
Yep. He had
So
just retired.
yeah, this idea, if you want to say that workers are going to have their own retirement plans, then you also better be offering education as to what exactly that means, because I can promise you we did not get financial education anywhere except on our own, and
Mm-mm.
we made a lot of mistakes.
Exactly. So let's talk for a second because you and I just have made a comment several times in the last, 12, 13 minutes that we have been around the block a few times, right? We we've
Couple.
we s- we entered the workforce in the early to mid 80s. I mean, you graduated and entered the workforce immediately. Hell, I started working when I was 16 years old and you
I
started
started
working when
mowing
you were.
lawns when I was 11.
Exactly. So, we have been part of the workforce for a long time. And so when we were pulling all of these headlines and getting ready to talk to A&M, one of the things I was like, wait a second, this kind of sounds familiar.
Mm-hmm.
And so we started looking for older headlines before artificial intelligence was even like being
Well,
thought about,
before
when it
large
came to the
language models,
workforce.
before large
Well,
language models, I mean, AI has been around a long time.
we
Large
know that
language models have not.
as I said, before it was even being thought about in the workforce. It's like just a common everyday person using an artificial intelligent thing to do their job, right? So some of those headlines that you pulled, I thought were really, really interesting. One of them was from 2018, and it was from a thing called SHRM. Don't know exactly what that stands for. Entry level experience requirements could be hurting your hiring. What does that
Yeah,
mean?
and this article is literally about the fact that it's what I said earlier. They were asking us, even in the 80s and in the 90s, when I got out. I mean, I got out of A&M in '92. They were this expectation that you came with a ton of experience,
Mhm.
and this article was that exact topic. You're going to have a hard time getting graduates. We used to make jokes about it. There was fields that were new, like these large language models, that were new that came out even back then, and people would go, "Yeah, we'd like you to have 10 years of experience," and you're like, "But that was just invented 3 years ago. How am I supposed to have
Exactly.
10 years of experience and it's in something that just got created?" So this was actually fairly common in technology for someone to literally list experience requirements longer than the field had existed. Now,
Okay,
if you're in
so
manufacturing, that's not going to be true necessarily, but it certainly was in technology.
let me get on my high horse. You ready?
Go for it.
Okay, we had 3 kids that went through college,
Yes.
and we have a lot of friends who have kids who've gone through college.
Hmm.
And one of the things that we had to do is like, and we really encouraged our kids, you need to get a summer job. You got to get a summer job. And the reason we encouraged this is because we had lived in the era of you got to have experience to get a job. You can't just get out of college and go to work. You got to know how to tie your shoes, right? You have to know
Right.
something.
Hmm.
So, one of the things that he did, our youngest one specifically, paid internships are so few and far between. But
That is a
if
fact.
you are willing to go work for free and let your mom and dad foot the bill while you're living up in Washington, D.C.,
We knew people
being
that
an
did that.
intern for a lobbyist, or
Hmm.
you're going out and you're doing like, going some overseas location to be an intern for someone, as long as you're willing to do it for free, as a matter of fact, not even having them help pay expenses, then by God, you can get a summer internship anywhere, right?
Yeah. Well, the I heard that not only the DC people were bad about it, but the big newspapers and stuff want people
Oh,
that want to be journalists. I heard it was the same problem with journalists.
yes, yes. And so here you go. You've got your haves and your
Yeah.
have-nots,
That is
right?
that is a pet
And
peeve of yours.
it's a really big pet peeve of mine because you got a lot of kids out there that they don't have the benefit of not having to work their way through school. And what's really bad, and this is going to be even worse, and I probably shouldn't say this, when we had our middle daughter was about to go to college and we had had a restaurant for so long that whenever you looked at our income, because of the amount of money that we were losing in our business, our daughter got better financial aid aspects. She got better grants and she had great grades. And so, because of a financial need, she qualified for a lot of scholarships based on her financial need. Whenever our son got ready to go to college, we were not in the same financial
Yeah,
situation.
we were working in a
We
school
were,
district, though. It's not like we were
but,
getting rich.
but he did not get, I mean, the amount of stuff that he qualified for. And that's why, you and I, we're basically working to help him through school and he's having to work to help himself through school. And so it's a lot of times it's that middle class that gets squeezed the most, right?
Yeah, and we're definitely not upper middle class. Our salary we make now in the 80s or 90s would have been maybe better middle class. Right now, we're barely in the middle class because we work for K-12 education,
Right.
and we still we make too much money. Now, if he wants to go to a really small college, then he could have probably gotten more scholarships. The problem was is they didn't offer the degree plans that he wanted,
Mm-mm.
or they didn't have the recognition in the field because he's got a degree in computer science, so he's afraid he wouldn't get a job. I mean, there's a lot of trade-offs that people make whenever they're working, and especially coming from small rural America. But
So
I think
he joined the military, so
yeah, I think the
he
point
figured it out.
is that this problem isn't new. We've got other headlines that again predate the November 2022 release of OpenAI or ChatGPT, but
Yep.
we've got one even older. The article itself actually was in 2013, but they were in the LA Times, but they were referencing articles written in the 90s
Right.
that firms were talking about how they weren't going to lay people off, but they did it anyway. And the first thing they cut as they were laying people off was
Internal training.
internal training,
Yep.
downsizing over reinvestment. And that
Right.
reinvestment piece, for this material that you asked me to help pull together for the A&M discussion at the Mays School of Business, because that is about workforce and education
Mm-hmm.
and what should education be doing to to help. And I built a table, which we probably won't have time to get to, specifically of how benefits and on the job training used to not be considered just a. I mean, it was so common that it wasn't really even thought of as a benefit. It was just expected. If I'm going to
Right.
work for you, you have to teach me what I need to know. And in your movie that you like so much, the
Mm-hmm.
kid literally came up from the mailroom. Now he only had 2 hours to get from the mailroom to the CEO position, so they had to accelerate things a little bit. But that was the point was is that because he was in the mailroom, he used that corporate knowledge that he got at a really high rate, but he used
Mm-hmm.
it still to build a plan to help the company get out of a financial situation.
Right.
And
Right.
what we have seen, you and I talked about this when we were actually preparing for this podcast, plus the material. We talked about the fact that coming up through the ranks thing, I remember in the 90s, late 80s, early 90s, I think it might have been the late 80s, I was working as a design engineer. Even before I got out of college, I was still working designing hardware. And the hardware stuff that I was designing was for Macs. And I remember when they brought in John Scully, because I met John Scully actually on an elevator at a conference, but I met the guy. He came from like Pepsi. And for
Right.
some reason, Steve Jobs, who was younger and didn't know better, he thought bringing him in because he had all these corporate contacts and he ran these big corporations that he was going to be good for running a tech company. Boy, was he wrong. And between him, then first thing Scully does is push out Jobs, and then they get another guy in who also comes from I think he came from an actual tech company like IBM, but they basically killed Apple.
Right.
When Steve Jobs came back, they were about to go bankrupt.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
he ended up bringing them back from the brink to what they are today because he had corporate knowledge.
Right.
I
Right.
can't
It was
overemphasize
his
that.
baby. Apple was his baby. He knew
He,
every single thing
he
about it.
knew the nooks and
Every single
crannies.
thing.
He knew
Yeah.
he knew
Yeah.
he knew the skeletons in the closet, where the bones are buried or bodies are buried, whatever you want to say, whatever old saying you want to do. So I think that was interesting that it's considered a perk now to train someone to do the job you're asking them to do. That's
Right.
why do you think our young people have? You mentioned loyalty earlier. Why do you think they don't have
Yeah.
any? Why should they? What perk are you giving them other than a paycheck? And if you're going to give them a paycheck, my loyalty is going to be to whoever gives me the next biggest paycheck.
Well, and there's all these horror stories, and I mean, I know people personally. I know a lady that worked for a corporation here in Austin, Texas. That she started working for them when she was 21 years old, and she worked for them for 27 years
Yeah, I remember
and
this
just
story.
got let go. I mean, she got let go,
She got
and
laid
it,
off.
yes, and it's one of those things that, I mean,
And
you give your life to some of these companies, and then you get literally a pink slip. I
you
mean,
know,
it's happening too. I mean,
it's been
i-
happening for
in
a
ed
long time.
in education, a lot of the teachers that are retiring out from education, believe me, they're not getting the respect that they deserve when they decide to finally leave. I mean,
Well, the funny thing is believe it or not, though, education, if you move outside of the boundaries of the school district and you move to the level of you know the state level and all that stuff, they don't have any respect. I mean, that's why they've been killing the teacher pensions, because the people in Texas that have been in control, I won't say which party, but they've been in control of our party for like 30 something years. They hate public education. They got a couple of billionaires putting tons of money into making sure we kill it. And one of the ways they're killing it is to kill retirement. They want to privatize the retirement system. So now what was the rule of 70, which meant your age plus your years of service add up to 70, you could retire. Then it became the rule of 80. Now it's the rule of 90. So you have to have been working in a school district from the time you're 12 years old in order to be able to retire at a reasonable age. Can you imagine being in the classroom for 45 years? I
I know
mean,
people who have been.
there have been, but you're going to have to treat teachers a whole lot better than you do to get them to want to stay in front of a classroom for 45 years,
Yeah.
because between the parents and the disrespect they get from the parents and from the state legislatures and all the others, they're like, you can lucky if you can get them to stay for 5 years now. So
Yeah.
anyway,
All right,
I'm
let's
done with
talk
that
about our
rant.
key points.
All
We've got
right.
about
So
five
what
minutes
are the
five
points?
minutes left.
And we got to talk. We got to go over these because we really want to make these when we go talk to the folks today.
So, on the job training doesn't exist anymore.
It's been dying for a while. They're just killing it faster. AI is
Okay.
accelerating it. Yes.
Okay. AI and entry level jobs, they're those lower tiered positions, they're disappearing.
Yep.
Okay. Um, Trade versus white collar.
I thought you would
This,
like that point. I put that
you
in
know,
there because I saw a headline. That's why I put that
hmm
one in there. I saw a headline specifically about trades, people in the trades like plumbers using AI as a tool every day.
Mm-hmm.
So I just thought it just kind of flagged in my mind. They still do apprenticeships. They still have a process for training people in most blue collar, which is ironic because you would think that these high skill level knowledge jobs that they talk about in the knowledge space would also, they'd want that same level of training. But electricians, plumbers, those kind of positions, they still have it. They still have that kind of stuff. That's
And they have a definite certification levels for
yes, they
like a
do.
journeyman or a master electrician and so forth and
Yes,
so on. And it makes you very sought after if you hit those
absolutely.
levels. So skills trades are they still have the strong
Yep,
apprenticeships,
I thought you'd like that.
and I think that those skilled trades are one of the ones that it's going to survive the um,
That's what people
AI
say.
revolution or whatever.
I
Yeah.
just I just hope the
Um,
pay keeps going up for it.
the narrowed K-12 curriculum, because of our standardized testing pressures, it's stripped out of the life skills and the practical learning that happened in K-12 education. And because of that, that is not feeding, or we're not able to feed as much into the workforce as we used to be able to do it. Now, we still have like CTE classes and stuff that you get a little bit of state money for if you do like
Yeah.
CTE, but let's talk about under-resourced K-12 schools. Like right
Well,
now at our district, we're only able to offer 3 different tracks, and that's it because we don't have the resources to offer more than 3 different tracks of the non-college bound kid. And
well,
that's it.
there's a lot of, we can go into that. We've talked about that for a long time. At the end of the day, they're continuously putting all these things that we have to do in K-12 that keep us from doing the things. When I was here, when I was in Llano High School, we had trade classes, we had
Hmm.
welding, and then we still have welding here, but it's really narrow focused stuff that we have now compared to what we had
I
then.
mean, we had when I was in high school, which was about the same time when you were, we had finance classes, we had
Yes.
sewing classes, we had cooking classes, we had
What?
mechanics classes, we had,
Yeah.
tons of different things that we could do. And we had these little
We did
micro
mini
things that we could
courses.
do.
Yeah,
Yeah, like
we did
six
mini
weeks.
courses in junior high here.
Right, right. Like if I
So
liked photography, I could sign up for a 6-week mini course and learn how to
yeah,
do. I've got several students who are now professional photographers that were in my makerspace that I taught them
because
how
that was
to
one of our
use a
core
camera.
skills. That was one of your core
Right,
skills in your makerspace.
right, was
Anyway, I
photography.
had you a couple other key points that I wanted you to make sure that you went over. It's why I put them in here.
Policy
So
shifts and innovation paradox.
yeah,
You've
that
got
one
your
is
voucher
that's
and
a
your
rant
charter
for me
schools. Yes, so we got the voucher and the charter school dilemma to where we have all this going on, and it, they tell us, foster innovation, and then they draw a box and they say, oh, by the way, this is the box you have to work within, and this is where you can foster that. Okay, but that doesn't work for public education. You can't test us to death and not expect us not to teach to the test. Okay,
Well, yeah, and then you can't expect me to be innovative if you draw such a tight box that I have no space to innovate in. So
right,
and the thing is, they don't even see the fact that what they're saying is completely opposite of each other. I want you to innovate, but
right.
I'm going to take away all your resources to innovate with, and I'm going to take away all your room to innovate and force you to. Anyway, it doesn't make
Right.
sense. So
This one's important too. When you and I were having this conversation before we got on to do this podcast, one of the
yes,
things we talked about was like the online school contradiction. One of the things they say that they are, online schools, K-12, whatever,
we have one in
take your
Texas
kid.
that the
We
state
have one in,
actually has.
it's free.
Yes.
It's not, because it's costing you your education, because they say that online schools are the way to go, but do they not remember that during COVID, what's the first thing we had to do is we had to flip the switch and put all the kids online at home to get their education. And now we still have not, and we will not close the gap between what we were before COVID versus what we are after COVID. We have so many kids that are so far behind because of those, literally 2 to 3 years behind because of the COVID situation where they all went online.
But AI is going
Now,
to fix all that because AI is going to get rid of the need for teachers and it's going to make the whole online process more interactive. You know what the flaw in that particular idea is? Because I love AI, don't get me wrong. We had
if you
live
don't have,
we had live teachers We had
Yes.
live teachers teaching it. The problem was is that we saw this because I had one of my I was teaching a computer programming class, and my son was in it, which is convenient because he was at my house. But I had another kid, and he was at home in this little tiny bedroom. His parents were having his house remodeled. He could barely hear. He didn't have great equipment, so he didn't have the same opportunity to interact with me as my son did or the other people in my class.
Hmm.
So
Because of all the distractions at home.
because home is not made. I mean, I'm not a big believer in homeschool stuff. I don't think there is a person who's so qualified that they can teach every single subject at home. And you're a master, you have a master's degree. I have a bachelor's degree. We have lots of education. You'd think if anybody could do it, we could. It's hard. And
I wouldn't take it on.
what we saw in COVID was the kids that went through that are behind. And
Yes.
now you're saying that online schools are a good option when you know that they get them by. Anyway, we're
Okay,
going to run
so
out of
here's our
time. So
conclusions. We're out of
I,
time, Jim.
I threw some conclusions in there for you because I wanted you to have a good wrap up. So I let.
Okay. Things are changing in the workforce even faster because AI is acting as an accelerant, and it's like getting rid of on the job training and stuff like that. So AI is accelerating or exacerbating this issue, and we know that. K-12 public education is being told to compete, but we're not being allowed to compete because of resource constraints. There are opportunities, but
But they're changing.
they're not looking like they did, 5 years ago, a year ago, 2 years ago, right?
And they're going to look
Um,
different next year than they are do this year. So AI
right.
is accelerating what those opportunities look like, which we can go into what those are, but we don't have time.
No, we do not. And the main thing for me, and it's something that I think is very, very important, this isn't new, right? You're going to have to push harder, and you're going to have to self educate for anything and everything to do with AI. You have to have those skills. They're even saying now that, I read an article yesterday about how corporate America, one of the questions it's asking is, what large language model do you primarily use? So if you're not in an institution, K-12 or higher education, that is teaching you how to utilize and how to properly utilize artificial intelligence, you are going to have to self-train so that you're able to get a job when you get out.
Or you could hire us. But what's interesting about that is it's not just teaching you, it's not just about AI. AI has a dual role. It is a skill you're supposed to have, but it's also being considered a tool that you're supposed to use to self-educate. So it's another excuse not to provide you with professional development, which is the term you would use in education, but it's the same thing in corporate America. The things that they used to teach you as you got there, they're now saying, "Oh well, you can do AI tutorials," and they're probably even going to provide AI tutorials. So it's got this role as this, I want you to have the skill, but oh by the way, I also want you to use it as a tool. That
Hmm.
seems contradictory to me. How can you? I mean, I use AI as a tool to help me educate myself, but it's still a lot of work, even with AI, to learn how to do something. So you can't just say, well, you've got AI now, everything's just easier. It may be for the easy stuff that AI is capable of doing, maybe, but it's not easy for everything. I mean,
No, it's not.
I have a process I use for learning with AI that involves multiple tools.
Right. So, my name is Mari. I'm here with my husband, Jim.
And we're done
And
ranting.
thank you. We're done ranting. Thank you guys for listening. Catch us next time on AI in Action. Until then, you guys have a marvelous rest of the week.